Nigel Farage, these two cases have been dismissed by the Supreme Court. What's your reaction?
On the face of it, good news. I don't believe prisoners should have the vote. If you go to prison and lose your liberty, I think you should lose your democratic rights as well. But please remember, this is one judgment from the British Supreme Court amidst a long, ongoing case where prisoners have been taking a whole variety of different judgments, not just to the Supreme Court, but to the highest court in the land. And the highest court in the land is not the Supreme Court anymore. No, there's a court in Strasbourg called the European Court of Human Rights, who at any time can trump the judgment we've seen this morning.
I mean, the judges seem to say that the European Court of Human Rights had indeed talked about there being a breach in terms of prisoner voting, but they didn't feel there was any point in adding to that by talking about these cases being in any way admissible.
Well, ultimately, it doesn't really matter what the British government says, even if it is backed up by the Supreme Court in Westminster. The real point to bear in mind is that the Supreme Court of our country, the ultimate law of our land, rests with European courts, not with the British Supreme Court. And this is the fundamental point. So we can have a brief cheer today that the Supreme Court has done something sensible, that the vast majority of British people would agree with, but that does not mean this long, ongoing battle is over. And I beg people to remember that in most countries that are member states of the European Union, prisoners do have the vote. And as we know, the whole project of European integration is to try and make us all the same. And in the end, I can't tell how long it'll take, but in the end, if this is left to the European Court in Strasbourg, I can assure you prisoners will, in the end, get the vote.
One other thing that the judges mentioned was the eligibility to vote. They said that was a mandate that belonged to the UK, belonged to the government, didn't belong to the EU. Is that something that you take heart in, perhaps?
Well, I mean, if that judgment means that EU citizens could be stopped from voting in next year's European elections by a British government, I think you'd find that directly in breach of European treaties that we signed up to originally over 40 years ago. So I don't even believe on that case there's any reassurance at all.
So you're saying don't hang up the bunting yet, is a way that you've put it. If the court had, however, ruled the other way, would that have been yet more concern for you? Is this, in other words, a step in the right direction that they haven't ruled the way that you perhaps feared?
Well, it may be a sign that the British Supreme Court intends to try and put up a bit of a stand against the European Court of Human Rights over prisoner voting and over the issue of compensation, because don't forget there are some prisoners who've been denied votes in previous elections who want financial compensation for that. So, look, of course I'm pleased that the Supreme Court has judged the way that it has, and I would like to be able to say that is the end of the matter and turn heels and walk away from this interview. But I can't do that, all the while the truth is we're still subordinate to a court in Strasbourg, staffed incidentally by people, most of whom aren't even judges.
I'd like to return to the southeast of England, because there has been a link in the past with the Berkshire case, the John Hurst case. That's something you've been particularly concerned about. That's still all up in the air from your point of view following this ruling today.
Yeah, I mean, this case today was a specific case of two people asking to vote in next year's European elections. John Hurst's complaint goes back much further and is much deeper. He wants to vote in local elections, he wants to vote in referendums, he wants to vote in general elections and European elections, and that case is still ongoing.